Hi, this is a small review that we are going to do on classes, and we are going to use the student class in order to do this example and this review. This will help you understand a little bit better the questions that were on week 17 of our course. Okay, so let's start talking about the basic structure of the class. Well, we know this already. We know that a class contains a title or a label, and then we have the variables that we should declare. Okay, all the instance variables of our class. Now, it is important to understand the way that we declare those variables, if they're private or public. If they're private, they can be accessed from any method inside our class. But if they're public, they can actually be accessed outside of the class. Okay, the same thing happens with our methods. Okay, after we we have our instance variables, we want to create our constructor methods. Now, we can create as many constructor methods as we want, and one of them is the default method, which has no parameters. So we have the default method. In this case, we have our instance variables all initialized, all the 3 tests to 0 and the name to blank. Okay, and we have another constructor method where we actually input all the information and we pass on to this method a string, which is the name, and the 3 test scores. Okay, now this method will actually pass on to our private variables, okay, the ones that we have in our class. Okay, after we build the constructor methods and we have those variables created, we can have mutator methods and accessor methods. The mutator methods will actually modify one of our instance variables. Okay, they will actually modify. You have to be very careful now that if I create and declare another variable inside my method, then this method is completely new. Okay, so if we actually create another one, it will work. There is no error shown on our IDE, but this name is not going to be the one that I'm trying to modify. I'm modifying a string that is actually inside the set name scope. So that's the only thing that you need to be careful with. Okay, and it's very common to create or declare new variables inside the methods. You have to make sure that the name is the same one that we have on top with the variables. Okay, so that's one thing that is very important. Another thing is talking about public. So our methods, we want to make them public if we want to work and access them from a different app. Okay, so the best way is to have your other class where you have your main method, and your main method will create the object. So here I'm creating an object student with the parameters already. Now on that student, since it's a public, all the methods are public, I can actually access and use the methods. So I can set the scores, I can set different things using my parameters. So I can set the name, and I can change the name of this object. I just need to access the student. So a.setName, and immediately I should get my method. Okay, and the set name is going to be Carl. Okay, so I'm changing the name to Carl, and immediately I can actually print out using an accessor method. That's what, therefore we can actually get something, get score, get average, get high score, or I can use the toString method, which I already formatted in order to print any type of object that I like. So here I have the name of the student, the test scores, and of course the average of this student. This is a way that I pretty much like to use, which the get average of this would be the object that I am working on. Okay, so this is a very good example of how to use a method inside the class. Even though the getAverage is a method that I have in my class, and I want to know the average of the object in place, then I use the word this. Okay, so I just need to print out my object, and I can actually see it. Okay, so I'm going to run my program, and I'm going to see my object. So name of students, now it's Carl because I used the set name. Okay, so I modified this object. Every time that I use a mutator method, I'm actually modifying the object in hand. And the scores are the ones that I had already, and the average is 53. Okay, the average, so because I'm using another method. So that is pretty much things that you need to know about this. Another important thing that you should have in account is the way that you create our final variables. Let's say test 1 is has a final where it's a constant. So I'm going to say test 1 is a constant, and has the final condition. Okay, now look over here. Every time that I try to assign a different value to test 1, an error appears, and that's something that you don't want to do. So be careful, because look, even on the constructor method, trying to add another variable to the one that we had that is stated as final, it's going to appear with errors. So if you have this, you won't be able to change it. Okay, actually this is a runtime error because it cannot be assigned. I'm sorry, this is a syntax error because after you create the final, it cannot be assigned. And of course, on our set score method, all the test 1 will not work. Okay, so that's something that you need to understand. Okay, now let's see another option. What if one of our instance variables becomes public? If one of my instance variables becomes public, I can actually access it from a different class. Let's see over here. So here I use the method in order to modify the name. But now that name is public, I can actually access name, the variable name that I created, and assign it. Since it's a string, I can assign it right away. A string. Okay? In this case, I will modify immediately the name. Okay? The problem is with this that you never want to modify directly the variables. Okay? You want to use the helping methods for that. So in that case, you're making this public, and anything or anyone that wants to modify your variables inside your class can actually do it. Okay? So here when you run the program, you will actually get the new word, the new name of this person, because you're modifying its variable. Okay? Okay. One last thing that we're going to talk about is about explicit invocation of methods. As you can see, we have some methods here, or some constructor methods. So we're going to explicitly invoke one of these methods in case anybody uses a different type of object construction. So if they say public student and they want to create another method, I can actually invoke one of my prior methods, and let's say the student, this person only inputs the name. Okay, so in this case, I will invoke another method from my same class, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say this, and which is n, which is the one that he entered, and then I'm going to put the other ones as the method that I usually create. Okay, so in this case I invoked this method because I'm using a string and I'm using 3 integer numbers. So I can say, okay, if a person just types in a name, then I want to invoke this constructor method and add the test scores from the other one. So this is the word this, or the keyword this, means that is invoking the object which is being held at that time. Okay, I believe this is very useful in order to create more than one constructor method, and in order to invoke, kind of like proofread what the user will do. Okay. So that's pretty much it. What we've learned about classes and objects so far, we just understand that this is the basic structure of a class, and that we can try out different things in our main method in order to call and invoke and create methods, and invoke different messages and call different methods. Okay.